One of the first games on the PC Engine CD in 1989 is Cobra, Kokuryo's Legend, which is the introduction of a new genre for the console, the visual novel. Now, many people will say that the visual novel is Japan's version of the point-and-click adventure. Now, aside from some similarities in the interface, the two are different genres. However, I see what they're saying, especially given that the visual novel was heavily popular on microcomputers and CD-based consoles in the late 80s and early 90s. As you can see from this footage, Cobra Kokuryo's Legend is a sci-fi fantasy tale where you play as a hotshot space agent known as Cobra. He's got a gun in his arm. He has a robot named Lady that follows him around who's super sexy, but you don't really see her in these opening scenes. In these opening scenes, what you're really doing is exploring a ship, getting a feel for everything, and kind of learning the world. Now, what I do like about this game is it seems very vibrant in both color and in character development. You meet a lot of aliens in this opening scene that have very diverse traits. They look very distinct. And then, of course, as you'll see, you see a lot of men and women who are in really good shape, wearing barely any clothes. I guess that is a definite deciding factor for this. And as I look into the sequel, which did get localized and brought over to America in the future, maybe I'll get a better feel for the world. Basically, from what I can tell in this opening scene, though, it is a world that is not unlike maybe a Star Trek universe or even a Mass Effect universe for more modern players, in that it's a bunch of aliens coming together along with a bunch of humans, and everyone seems to have some sort of coexistence, but again, there's always the need for enforcement, police, agents, whatever Cobra's goal is. Now, I keep saying these opening scenes and talking about what could be happening because, as you can see, this is all in Japanese and I have no idea what the story was. I tried to give it a go, and after about 30 minutes I gave up, not being able to successfully navigate the ship or figure out what I was to do next. I did find an ID card, though, which I guess is farther than most people get. The reason I have this problem is that Cobra, Kokuryo's Legend, was never fan-translated. It never got a script released for it in English, and I couldn't even find a walkthrough. Couple that with the fact that its better translation is Space Adventure Cobra, and the fact that the sequel, Cobra 2, was localized and brought over to America as The Space Adventure or Space Adventure Cobra. This creates that weird world sometimes found with translated or localized games, where when you search for one game, you keep finding the more popular in the West version of the sequel. That's why you'll find many screenshots, footage, things like that say the Space Adventure Cobra to be actually the sequel, and again, we'll talk about that when it comes up. In the meantime, it makes this a relatively obscure game if you don't know Japanese because you really have no guidance along the way. Still, I gave it a shot and it did have some great graphics. It seemed to control just fine, and it looked like there was a great story there that I'd love to get to know. But unfortunately, without any sort of guidance in English, I'm kind of stuck. That being said, if you do know Japanese, this is probably the beginning of a much more popular sequel, and it would be great to have the backstory for it. That's why this stands as one of the more important and notable visual novels for the console in 1989. But for those of us in the West who only know English, it's pretty much you have to skip.